Hey everyone, it's Peter Brown here with Kevin Van Nord, and we've got an exclusive look at the intro to the second bit of DLC for Bioshock Infinite, Burial at Sea Part 2.
Yeah, and there's a lot to talk about and a lot to wonder about and a lot to think, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
So we should probably just go right into it and see what we can make out of it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's good. At the end of the first bit of DLC for Burial at Sea, we were left with...
Spoilers!
Well, spoilers if you're watching this anyway.
Yes, that's true.
Booker was wrestling with a little girl. What was it? Was it a little daughter?
A little sister.
A little sister.
Coming out of the vent. They had basically smoked and burned her out of the vent.
And Elizabeth was there next to him.
Yeah.
And then actually you were wrestling with the little sister from a vent, as you can see in the background right here.
So, Suchong is one of the links between Columbia, actually the main link as far as I'm concerned, between Columbia and Rapture.
Okay.
So he is a scientist who worked with Fontaine to develop plasmids. So he's one of the minds behind plasmids, and the way he's linked to Columbia is that his technology is being taken by a tear.
By Fink, right?
By Fink, I think, yeah. Yes. And in turn, then, if I'm led to remember right, that's how some of the Columbia technology, like the mechanical stuff, actually finds its way to Rapture.
Back for Burial at Sea, the first part, yeah.
Right. So there is that link there, and it looks like the new episode is going to be using Suchong as a way of like making this happen, of getting them back to Rapture, and possibly of maybe getting Elizabeth back to Columbia. There's a lot of weirdness here because there are multiple versions of characters throughout all this. So for example, the Booker in the first DLC is the Booker of that universe. The Elizabeth of that DLC is the Elizabeth of the universe that we played in Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah.
And so, to me, there's a certain implication here that continues to be the case, that this Elizabeth is still the Elizabeth from the last game, from the first DLC. The thing is, we don't know for sure, and that's the wonder of this kind of thing, or disappointment of this kind of thing, depending on how you look at it, is that they can do whatever they want with the excuse of, well, it's an alternate history, and we're mixing things in whatever way we want.
Yeah, I think that sort of was used to, I think maybe not the best effect at the end of the original bit of DLC, because it was sort of like, okay, wait a minute, now this is happening. Hopefully, I think the second part will answer some of those questions that aroused, because I was definitely confused at the end of Burial at Sea Part 1.
Yeah, the ending of Burial at Sea Part 1 was really interesting. And the takeaway, of course, at the end of the first part of the DLC is that that Booker is a Booker who, in his universe, actually caused Elizabeth's head to be chopped off.
Yeah.
That would have been the Elizabeth of that particular dimension, and then he gets the Lutesses to actually send him off to Rapture, so that he never has to think about any of that again.
Yeah.
So he's basically doesn't have any memory of Comstock and so on and so forth. All that stuff's been wiped away.
Right, but then now we've got the two versions of Booker.
Which and that's interesting to me, because how exactly does that happen? As far as I know, we've never had any incidents in these. Now, somebody out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember an incident in Infinite where there is a character that's invisible to everybody else.
I mean, the one exception, not based on your question of Infinite, but I think maybe he exists in some kind of tear. Maybe Elizabeth can manifest those things mentally.
That's true. Maybe he has gone. Maybe there is a tear, but we don't see the tear visual. And so
no, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it's internal for her.
It could be.
Yeah.
And what's another interesting thing, of course, is that it looks like Booker's hair is white when he's dragged away there.
Right, and that was sort of to mirror the
end.
And
that's that mirrors the end, and that's a Comstock thing. It's Booker as Comstock.
I'm hopeful that it looks like they're sort of tying Infinite back to Bioshock in a way that's going to make a little bit more sense, if that's possible, than the original Burial at Sea, Chapter 1.
Yeah, that was a big problem, actually, in that DLC.
Just
was it a lot of it
slapped together?
Slapped together, and it seemed like, well, here's a greatest hits of different characters, and we're going to take we're just going to bolt the things together.
Yeah.
You know, here's some stuff from Columbia, here's some stuff from Rapture. We're bolting the characters and the mechanics from this one into the world of this one.
Right.
And they didn't necessarily make sense together.
And that showed.
It did show in the gameplay and the storytelling. But I'm curious, you know, like at this point, it's whether or not you love it or whether or not you think it's a train wreck. I think it's hard to look away.
Yeah, and plus now we're going to be able to control Elizabeth in the second chapter, which is going to be very interesting. Presumably, you'll have power over tears. Hopefully, I think that's pretty much everyone's expectation at this point.
You would think, but since tears up to this point have been nothing more than a relatively jargony, you know, kind of thing. You know, it doesn't. You don't use them at your will. You know, they're there to basically.
But you're controlling Elizabeth now.
You're controlling Elizabeth, but I don't know. Do they have it in them to do something that extraordinary to actually make tears meaningful?
If they want to meet expectations, and if they want to tie the two worlds together, that might be a really interesting and immediate way to do it as well.
So, Peter, any thoughts before we throw it back to?
I just am totally confused, but I can't wait to see more.
Yeah, I'm confused, but I'm really interested to see where this goes.
Yeah.
And in that sense, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to us jabber on and on about it. Thanks for taking a look at the exclusive look at what appears to be the opening of Episode 2 of Burial at Sea for Bioshock Infinite. And thanks to everybody for tuning in.